Welcome to the Hardcore MBA podcast with your host, Erlend Bakke.
Hello and welcome to Hardcore MBA. Today I'm very excited. A couple of weeks ago I attended an excellent property seminar. Why? Well, because I have some cash and I'm looking to invest in property, but it turns out it's just not that easy. There are so many different ways of investing in property. So I thought, it's probably not a good idea to put money into something that I don't really understand. So I went out and I got, Cracking the Property Ladder, which you can get on Amazon with Matthew Moody. And I figured out, he's actually doing a seminar that I can attend. And at that seminar, I learned so many things, Matthew, so thank you for that. You are a property millionaire. You have multiple companies, and you talk about all these different types of systems in your book. Which there's lots and lots of different ones. And what I really liked about your book also is that you have strategies for people that are beginners all the way up to advanced. Plus you layer on the element of systems so if you have 50 properties, how do you actually manage them? Because a lot of people think that, you just kind of buy a property and then it's a passive income and you just don't have to deal with it. So what is... why did you start in property?
Yeah, so thanks for inviting me to the podcast, Erlend. I appreciate it. Why did I start in property? Well, I guess like a lot of people, and I'm actually writing a new book right now where I'm actually talking about this very thing about why did I get started in property.
Okay.
For me, it was the fact that I was working for a company making a lot of money for them, and we're talking about multiple millions of dollars. And whilst I was well paid, I could see that I could carry on working for that company for any length of time because I was in a fairly secure position. I was integral to what was happening in the company. But in reality, how much more would I earn per year? Would I earn 20K, 30K, 50K, whatever it may be? And I kind of figured that there's something else going on here. And I was in JFK Airport at the end of another long trip that I had to go to on behalf of my company. And wandering around, I was on my way to the upper class lounge with Virgin. And I looked into Staples bookstore, which is bizarre because you normally think Staples stationery, they don't really do books. But at that time, for whatever reason, they were doing a little bookstore in the airport. And this purple book jumped out at me. And to be honest, I at first thought it was a child's book. I thought, well, what is this? But it was actually Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Right.
And thus the journey began for me when I started reading about the fact that, the rich don't work for time. The rich really work for what their investments can make them. And the different rules of wealth that apply to people that own businesses and own investments are so different to people that are employees that kind of just a mind switch just went off in my head, and I read the book on the way back over, didn't sleep, and got off the other end thinking I've got to leave my company in some way, shape or format. And to cut a long story short, because I know we want to talk about a lot of stuff about property, but the journey kind of took me to property. I looked at a lot of other things, but to me that seemed the one that actually I could do pretty quickly. I could make a return on pretty quickly, and it would allow me to essentially escape my job, which is really what I wanted to do at the time.
So what was going on inside you? Because, sometimes you pick up these books and you just kind of have all these aha moments. Like, how did you feel inside? Like, what kind of things were going through your head when you were reading it?
Well, I think the first thing that was going through my head was sheer incredulity that actually this stuff goes on. I didn't know anything about it, despite working for several large companies. And then the second feeling was a feeling of kind of kicking myself because I thought, well, actually, I know a lot of this stuff. It's just not really been verbalized before. And probably the third feeling was of excitement in terms of, well, if this guy can do it and other people he refers to in the book can do it, then why can't I do it? So all these kind of feelings were going on at the same time, and I kind of felt that the spark had been ignited, and what I then needed to do was go and find out more information about how to do what I wanted to do myself.
And how old were you at the time?
Well, I would say I was probably about 26, 27.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'd be working for like 5 years. Did you have any property at that time yourself, or were you renting?
I owned my own house, so I understood in some aspects the value of property because I'd seen it myself.
Right.
I'd bought a property probably in the mid 90s. And then sold it to purchase another property, and that property had gone up in value by £110,000 in a matter of 4 or 5 years, which I hadn't really taken any notice of because obviously when you buy a property, it's normally you want to live in it, you want to do whatever, and you don't really think about what's happening to that actual capital, and that was one of the things I thought, well, I've actually experienced that myself. So I can certainly see how that works, and I think a lot of the stumbling blocks people come across when they first get into property is the fact that they don't see that they can do it themselves, and sometimes you've got to believe it before you actually see it happen, and sometimes you have to really look at other examples of people that you may know or friends and family you may know and look at what they've done, and they may have done things without even knowing, such as buying their own property, it's gone up in price, etc. And through that you can then understand actually there is something in this property game and maybe you should explore it further.
I actually had the exact same feeling when I picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was actually mentoring this kid because in Norway we have this young entrepreneurs program in schools, which is really good. And I volunteered to be a mentor. And this kid was like 16 years old, and he was like, "Yeah, you should read, Rich Dad Poor Dad." And I just, had my own business for like 2 years at the time, so I think I was 27. And I picked up that book, and at the time, I don't have that kind of mind anymore. But at the time, I was thinking like, I kind of felt cheated, and I felt cheated because such a simple formula. If I'd read that book when I was 16, my life would be very different 10 years later. And I remember discussing things with him and talking lots about it. An interesting aspect in the book is that Kiyosaki talks about that you shouldn't really start your own business, because he talks about all his sort of business failures. He made these wallets and he made these other things, and the businesses did okay and he made some money on it, but ultimately, even in his gain cash flow, he doesn't really say like start your own business. He says like, maybe get a high paying job, live cheaply, invest in property, and then at some point you're going to be going to have enough income from the properties to not work anymore, and then you can just like scale up and build up your portfolio. And I actually haven't done that route. Despite reading the book, I still did business, and I think a reason for that was I had this thing where I promised myself I would never work for anybody else, and the problem with being an entrepreneur and having your own business is like the bank doesn't go, "Oh, great, you got your own business. We'll lend you lots of money," because that's not like a high risk thing to do. So what do you recommend? So entrepreneurs that want to get started in property, should they get a job for a while that's like high paying, so you get really good credit worthy, and then buy property? Or should you just stay in your business and then kind of become credit worthy through your business? What do you recommend?
I think it all depends on the actual location that you're looking to invest property in, and that's the tricky aspect, in that the tax laws are so different in every country in the world. So if you're in the UK right now, and I'm obviously in the UK, so I would speak from that perspective, the government is making it extremely difficult for people that want to purchase property in their own name without incurring huge costs. So really right now you'd need to be purchasing a property through a company vehicle, and thus doing that, what kind of experience do you really need? You don't need a huge amount of experience, but you need to have some degree of earnings to prove that you can earn, say, 25,000 or more a year. You have fairly decent credit, and also that your finances are kind of in order. So if you can kind of prove all of those things to the broker and then obviously to the bank, then you'll be able to borrow money against property. However, if you're an entrepreneur, there's still routes to market. You just need to prove some of those things which I mentioned in terms of the income and the credit and so on and so forth. And it's not unsurmountable. And in fact, it's probably become slightly easier in the sense that because in the UK we're heading down this route of the government trying to essentially institutionalize the sector, it means that company vehicles are looked upon with a little bit more openness and understanding than they were, say, 10 years ago, where it would be extremely difficult to get a company mortgage. And if you got a company mortgage, essentially you would be you'd have a personal guarantee on it anyhow. So in reality, it wasn't really a company mortgage; it was just a mortgage in a different name that you guaranteed.
Right. So in the UK now, what you're saying is you should have a limited company. That company buys property, and you can and then expense a lot more. And that's so the UK wants people to be professional property investors rather than sort of like private people buying stuff.
Well, what I'm saying is the government at this moment in time believe that is the way to professionalise the sector. I believe it's utter nonsense. They don't actually know what they're talking about, and they should actually come down to the cold face property investing and find out how it really goes on. But that's their current perception, yes. So we have got to work within those rules and boundaries that they set us. But you'll find that different different countries have different laws in which you can obviously get into property. So in the US, for instance, you can get into property for not a huge amount of money by essentially, taking over somebody's mortgage and essentially paying a small amount towards the deposit. Sometimes that can be very little money at all. And a lot of that is kind of demonstrated through the cash flow game that Kiyosaki invented. But other countries have very different tax laws. So I would say it all depends on your country. The best place to start is always with a good broker, a good mortgage broker, to tell them what your situation is, tell them what it is you'd like to do, and for them to then come back to you and say, well, look, here's your options, here's what you can do, here's how much you potentially lend. And then you'll be able to then make a decision as to, well, is it right for me to carry on this path I'm going? Can I develop more cash flow streams so that I've got more cash to put into the properties? Or should I, as you mentioned earlier, perhaps look at doing some kind of high-paid job?
Right. And how would I go about finding a good mortgage broker? How does that work? What is a mortgage broker and where do you find them?
So you can get a mortgage from pretty much anywhere nowadays. Most banks will do mortgages. The issue with going to a bank is that they'll be tied to their bank's products, and generally it's quite inflexible in terms of what they can and can't do. So a mortgage broker is someone that looks at the whole market, and they will have access to a wider variety of mortgages than you would through going to your bank. The best way of finding one is generally through recommendation. People obviously do advertise, and you can probably find them in your local high street, but you probably want to get some recommendations from people that are actively buying right now, because they'll know who the good brokers are. Because it's the same with anything, I guess. You can have someone that's a good broker, and you can have someone that's a really good broker. It's same in any kind of business. You can have a great cafe and you can have a really crap cafe. It's just how it is. So you need recommendations for sure. But yeah. if you're in that kind of mindset of wanting to find out information, then a lot of the places you probably start doing is going to, say, some networking, property networking, probably some kind of property forums for your specific market, or country. And through that, you'll then be able to start making friends with people and ask those questions.
It's interesting with the banks because, I talk to a lot of people and sometimes they ask me about advice, and a lot of people are buying just normal, like go to the bank and the bank says, oh, buy funds, right? Yet people haven't really done their financial education, so they haven't heard of index funds, and the bank doesn't promote index funds because they have on average 2% lower management fee. so banks have this, like, in people's minds, banks have this trust aspect, right? Like, oh, we'll just go to the bank. If they tell us to do X, we'll do X because that's the bank and they tell us the truth. Yet I found that that's not really the case. And one of the things I learned at your seminar, because there was a mortgage broker there, and she talked a lot about, like, different things we could do in terms of, first of all, increasing my credit rating, and then, like, how to apply for a mortgage to get, like, the lowest rate. And that was really interesting for me. That was like, and as always, it's like not following convention and kind of saying, okay, I have this project, I want to make it happen. How can I, the empowering words, how can I make this happen? And then finding, like, different routes of making it happen. So in terms of, so we're focusing on sort of people getting started, because I think most people out there watching this, they're sort of, they're kind of interested in real estate investing, or they have a bit of cash and they're thinking about, oh, should I start a business or should I go into real estate? So you mentioned networking. What kind of things have you gotten out of networking, and what are things to be sort of aware of when you do real estate networking?
So I think once you start going down that route of wanting to develop a property investment portfolio, you've got to look at where do you start. And books is a great place to start. And obviously there's a wide variety of books out there that you can access, including Cracking the Property Code. Great book, obviously.
Absolutely.
And that book has got 45 strategies in that you could do in property, and there are more than that as well. And so it gives you a good flavour of what you can do and what is open to you. The problem you've then got is, generally speaking, most people that start to get into property, they don't know anyone else in property. Unless you're fortunate enough to come from a family of entrepreneurs and business owners and property investors who are already in property, then essentially we wouldn't really be having this conversation. You probably won't be listening to this podcast. But if you're just getting started and you're out there on your own, it's really about connection, isn't it? It's that circle of influence of the 4 or 5 people that you're closest to, kind of dictate what it is that you earn and how you live your life and all those kind of good stuff. So this is all about expanding your circle and meeting new people who are actually doing what you want to do. So in any city, there'll be networking going on at least several times a month. In the UK right now, it's very much advanced. There's networking every single day of every single week throughout the month. I mean, there are so many, and yes, you do have to pick and choose. But the great thing about networking is generally the first time you go is either free or it's a low cost, and you can try it out and you can see what you like. And networking groups are running a variety of different sessions, from very much the stand up, listen to someone talk for an hour or so, through to actually just drinks and talking to people, and then maybe a few Q&A sessions or whatever it may be. There's a variety of different networking sessions, and some will help you more than others. So it's a case of almost pick and mix, really. If you're in a specific area, look at what's near to you. If there's nothing near to you, look at what's in the next town, and go along and see what it's like. And I think one of the a lot of people talk about, okay, you've got to go to a networking with an end goal in mind, and I do agree. Once you get started and you get going, that is definitely true. If you're just going along for the first time, I think this is more just a learning and recce exercise. It's just go along, absorb it all in. You don't have to make any decisions about anything. There may be additional courses or products you can buy at that event. You don't have to buy them. Just soak it all in and just see if it fits with you and you like it. And if you do, then go back again. If not, try another one. Certainly, a lot of people there with a lot of useful information you can pick up. Just pick people's brains.
And I guess if there isn't a real estate investing group where you are, you could always start one, because if you start a group, then you create the following, and then suddenly, even though you don't have property or even though you don't experience, you're like bringing these people together. And starting a meetup group is free. It could actually also become a revenue stream if you like provide high quality people. You could actually charge every time, and a lot of people in London have started these meetup groups, and some of them have 10,000 people, and they make a living out of just that meetup group. And it's always good to be the leader of a group as well, because then people sort of come to you and attracted to you, and suddenly you're as significant as the speaker. So, did you have a rich dad when you were building your portfolio?
No, not really. I would say that I did have mentors, people I was working with, but not a rich dad in the sense of, rich dad, poor dad story. I think it helps to have people to bounce off. And when I first got started, I had a colleague that I was kind of going along the journey with. So we'd very much discuss what we'd learn, what we were looking to learn. If we were reading books, for instance, we'd be comparing notes about what we'd found out about the books, and we'd go to courses and seminars together and just kind of assimilate as much information as possible. Yeah, I didn't really have a rich dad kind of figure.
So that was sort of your accountability partner.
Yeah, that's there. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So your first, so you had your own house, and then you bought one more property.
Yeah, that's right.
Can you talk us through like the from your perspective now, like what goes through your head for the person that's looking to buy that second property? What kind of things should they be thinking about?
So, someone buying their first investment property is much more difficult than buying your own property, because you're thinking about purchasing something that A, you're not going to live in, and B, it's got to make some kind of income for you so it doesn't end up costing you money. So you've got all these things going through your head in terms of, is it the right property? Is it the right deal? Is it going to actually make any money for me? Can I find a tenant? And all these things go through people's heads when they're first trying to get started. And a lot of people then fail at that first hurdle because they can't get their head around the fact that they're buying a property and they're not going to live in it, and it's not for them, and it doesn't have to have all the bells and whistles and have a marble fireplace or an awesome like $5,000 designer kitchen, all that kind of stuff. It's just got to be clean, tidy, presentable, and appealing to the target group that you're aiming it at. And a lot of people come unstuck at that level because they don't really think through what it is they're buying and why. So on my business circle mentoring that I do, we spend probably 6 weeks of the 6 month program just researching. And for a lot of people that may seem a long time, but the thing about research and preparation is once you've done it, you're then ready for the battle, because it is very much a battle out there at the moment in terms of there's a lot of people interested in property investment. There's a lot of money coming into the sector, wherever you may be. There's always investors that have got lots of money that can just scattergun it. And there's always people that have been in the market longer than you that have better contacts. And there's always people that will try and undercut you. So when you're going into battle, which essentially you are, you need to be prepared. And preparation is one of those things that is often overlooked. But if you do it properly, then you'll be really far, far ahead of most other people because they've not done as much preparation as you. So buying your first property is very much about the preparation and researching your market, understanding in a lot of detail, and then it's getting out there and actually viewing properties. And Richard Rebel Kiyosaki and Dolph DeRue's one of Kiyosaki's advisors back in the 90s, talks about this. If you're not viewing 100 properties a week, you're not even in the market. And a lot of people kind of read that literally and think, well, how would I have enough time to view 100 properties a week? Well, you don't. You view them on the portals that allow us to look at properties. In the UK, it'd be Rightmove, Prime Location, Zoopla, On the Market, those kind of things. You can easily look at 100 properties in an hour if you're really focused and diligent about it and you follow a specific system to do that. And if you don't, then you can still look at 100 properties in a week by just doing it bit by bit. And by looking at that amount of properties that quickly, you'll very soon begin to understand the market and what is overpriced and what is underpriced, and then that will then drive you towards going to actually view some of these in person. And for most people, you're probably looking at 10 to 20 properties to view before you're making offers on maybe 2 to 3, of which you'll maybe get 1 out of that.
I guess also like act as if also comes into the equation here. Like act as if you have, you have lots of money to invest. Like how would you be thinking about the market then? And I also thought it was really interesting how you said like, get the basics right. Like in business, it's really about buying cheap and selling high, right? So it's like, okay, how can I make this dump look amazing for nothing or little money, and rent it out for as much as possible or resell it for as much as possible? And obviously, the better connections you have and the more volume you can buy, the better deal you're going to get. But I think a lot of people, yes, I'm going through these emotions myself, like looking at properties now. I'm like, oh, it's not for me. It's not for me. It's not for me. So I'm not really. Yeah, but it's challenging me to think of it as like this is a property for a certain target audience, and how could I refurbish? Because obviously that's one of the strategies. The most basic strategy, I think, is you buy something, you rent it out, and then there's like layers of that where you can buy a property and then you can refurbish it, then rent it out, and then you have a plethora of other solutions.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 3 main reasons really why you'd want to get into property investment. The first one is you want to buy a property, hold on to it for a very long time and benefit from the capital appreciation, because all property will go up at some point. It may take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, but it will at some point double in value. They all do. Over the last 100 years, all the signs have indicated that in most countries in the world. So it will always go up, and you can obviously benefit from that. The second reason you do it is you want the cash right now, and you want to buy an asset that's going to give you cash in your pocket every single month, and then that will allow you to essentially build up a residual income. And the third reason you do it is if you want to make large amounts of cash once or twice a year that just drop into your bank, and these are the kind of cash that you would get from the kind of development refurbished type of properties. So those kind of things, those 3 reasons are really the only 3 reasons you'd get into property. And all the other strategies are really just, as you say, they're layers upon layers of different things that you can do. That's essentially what they are. And I think once you start getting into that mindset of understanding that it's just a unit, it's just a box or a unit, or it's an asset, then you start getting into this whole thing about, you're on Rightmove and you're looking at say you decide to buy 2-bed properties, and you start looking at them, and then all of a sudden you kind of drift off onto looking at those nice 2-bed penthouses, and you think, oh, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? That'd be lovely. I could see myself living in one of those. It's like, no. Go back, take 100 or 200K off the price or whatever it is, and start at the bottom and then look at those properties, because they're the ones that the average man and woman in the street wants to rent. And I think the other thing that often comes up for people getting started or on their own is they think, well, why should I start investing in property? Isn't it bad? And I'm robbing someone of a house. And this is an argument that's coming across from the government right now, that buy-to-let investors are basically taking properties away from first-time buyers and other people. The sad reality is that we're in a situation in a society now where there is no financial education in schools, and I know you're a proponent of this, Erlend, because we talked about it, and there is no financial education in schools about anything, really, and people don't understand how to manage their money, and thus a lot of people will never, ever buy a property because they cannot save money for a deposit, they cannot manage their affairs correctly in terms of not spending tons of money on store catalogues and credit cards, this, that, and the other, and then wondering why they don't have great credit and can't get the next LCD TV from Currys or wherever it may be. And all we're doing as investors is we've taken control of our financial future and financial security and said, actually, I'm going to put something in the sand here and say, this is going to give me an asset over a period of time. And I think coming back to what I said earlier about the 3 reasons, the first one, capital appreciation, is for me, it's kind of the added benefit, but it is also a benefit that because property is not a short-term game, it is really a long-term game. Most people should be able to benefit from that, and thus most people will have that to look forward to, no matter what age they're at. If you get started at 50, doesn't really matter. If you get started at 60, doesn't really matter. Most people should be positively optimistic they're going to live to 80 or so. You're going to have that time to benefit from that capital appreciation. And thus, it's, when people are having those thoughts about, oh, should I be buying properties, maybe I'm taking it away from other people, because some people do think that way. You've got to stop this thinking, and you've got to think that actually, no, you're taking control of your financial security for you, your family, and you're going to be providing for them. And this is one of the ways in which you're going to be doing this. And let me tell you, it's highly, highly unlikely that you'll be bidding more than a first-time buyer would for that same property if you get into a bidding war, unless it really makes a huge amount of sense. There is no way really that a professional investor will be paying over the odds for a property unless they can see it's got something in there that no one's else has thought about, such as a development opportunity or a way in which value can be added, where you can make a sizable return on the back end. Professional investors will walk away from it because that's not what they're interested in. They're interested in just getting bricks and mortar, number of units at the best possible price, that, as you say, makes the most amount of money for them.
So when people get emotionally involved when buying a house, so when people are buying for themselves, ultimately that'll drive up the price, because then we become irrational. And oftentimes it's actually women also making house decisions. Right, so the guy will be like, yeah, I want to make my wife happy. I think she'll be happy in this house. I'll just pay whatever to get it. So then it becomes an irrational purchase decision rather than a rational one. And then investors go, okay, this is an irrational buy. The valuation's too high. I'm out. Is that? Yeah.
And I think there are different types of investors, and there are some investors out there who are quite well known and run various training courses and such like, and the types of properties they buy are horrible, and you would never ever want to live in any of their properties. And then there are the investors and I had to go and live in one of those properties in a room, then I could do it, because I know that actually they're really nice properties and I've done them to such a standard that there really isn't any issue.
So you refurbished them, or?
Yeah. But refurbishment is an ongoing job for a property investor. So don't be fooled by the fact that you refurbish and that's it. When you're in different markets, depending on what they are, you're refurbishing all the time. So certainly my market, HMOs, house shares, we refurbish all the time. I mean, on a constant ongoing program, because there's a lot more wear and tear in the properties. But I guess what I'm trying to point out is that it's not an emotional decision that you're making to buy a property. It is a business and financial decision. However, you should also be aware of the fact of what type of product do you want to give those people that are looking to purchase your properties. And, nowadays there's so much competition because every man and his dog wants to get into this kind of sphere, because they see it as a quick return. And it's one of the fallacies. It's not a quick return, but people do kind of see that. But it's possible for you to do a really nice product for not a huge amount of money. I mean, all you need to do to make a product look good really is whitewash all the walls, have everything like plain and neutral, maybe put in a feature wall or a colour wall if you want to, and then just put in some decent furniture. And the decent furniture doesn't really cost that much. It really doesn't. But furniture that matches always looks better than furniture that doesn't. And, furniture from second-hand or charity shops versus brand new furniture, there's a big difference. And while we want to scrimp and save and try and reduce costs and not spend over the budget that we've created ourselves, you also want to be thinking about who you're going to rent this out to, and can you get more money for your product. So, for instance, in Northampton, where I'm based, where we have our letting agency, we've got maybe 150 odd units we manage. We have landlords there that will come to us and say, well, I've got this property, can you have a look at it? And we'll go and look at it and say, well, this particular room that you're renting right now, we could add £100 per month onto that room and it would rent out straight away. And they've been struggling with this thing for a period of time. And what do? We don't do very much. We basically would normally give it a lick of paint. We may rearrange the furniture or bring in a new piece of furniture, take some nice pictures, put it on our portals that we use, get viewings in, and then rent the room out. And once you know how to do that and you understand the whole process and what people are looking for, it becomes really, really easy to then just buy the same type of property over and over again. And this is why the big institutional developers and the large developers love apartments, because it's just a commodity. It's just a unit. They're all the same. And it's like if you go to a travel lodge or a Premier Lodge nowadays, you'll find that they're all exactly the same pretty much, because they're all modular built. And it's just a little box and they're all the same. They deliver them on lorries now. They insert them, that's it, they're done. Then they go. And someone fits the plumbing and that's it. And it's very much, it's just a unit. And if property investors start thinking about that from the point of view of not purchasing a portfolio of these completely disparate assets that have no relationship to each other, but thinking, well, if I'm going to go and invest, say, in, where would you be investing, Erlend, as an example? Well, give me an area. Yeah. If you.
So what I'm looking at is actually in Norway.
Okay.
And I'm looking somewhere close to transport, or somewhere where there's going to be built transport, and then also the amenities, which I read about this in your book, the golden triangle, the transport, the amenities, and then the quality of built. That's what I read in your book.
So let's say that you're going to go and do this in Oslo or wherever, or a city outside of Oslo, and you're going to then go and purchase certain amounts of stock. Well, it will make a lot of sense if you've done research beforehand to understand what it is that people are looking for right now, and then start purchasing that. So if people, for instance, in Northampton, there's a huge shortage of one-bed apartments. The reason for that is 2-bed apartments rent out for the same price as 1-bed apartments. So nobody actually wants to build 1-bed apartments because there's just no profit in them. And the price differentiation between the two is about 10k as well in terms of buying. So, for the amount of extra money, it's just not worth doing. So you may go to Oslo or another city and determine that actually people are really looking for 3-bed properties right now. So what happens to investors is they buy a 3-bed property, they start making money for them, and then they come across a deal, but it's not a 3-bed property. It may be a 5-bed property. It could be a 2-bed apartment, or it could be something else, and then they buy that. And then they found that doesn't work quite so well as the 3-bed property, because essentially they've deviated from their model. And the people that get rich through property investment are the people that just stick to a model and they just follow, rinse and repeat. Kind of what you do in your own businesses of outsourcing. It's just rinse and repeat, just over and over again. And if property investors followed that same model themselves, then they would gain both economies of scale through doing that in the same area. They would also really become a major player in that market because that's all they're doing. But also, it would free up a lot of their time, because once you start going down the property investment route, it does take time and energy to be doing the research, the viewings, and this, that, and the other. And agents, estate agents I'm talking about here, so real estate agents that are trying to sell properties to you, they love to send you whatever they've got on their books because they just want to get rid of whatever they've got ready on their books. But sometimes you don't want what they've got on their books. That makes sense?
Yeah. So what? Because you mentioned that one of your companies actually furnishes apartments for people. Am I right?
Yeah. So sorry, just taking a quick swig of tea there. English delicacy and all.
Yeah. So do you have milk and sugar in it, or?
Of course, yeah. No, no. I'm from Yorkshire, so it's proper Yorkshire tea. Milk and sugar and English breakfast and all
Yeah.
that. So yeah, we've got a small company that does furnishing. We don't advertise it widely, if I'm really honest, because we work with a small bunch of investors that use us over and over again, and we do uh, anything from pine to oak to ash type of furnishings. It's all real wood, and it doesn't look funky. I'm honest. It's not like the IKEA kind of style, which is, it's modern, it's funky, it looks good, but it lasts a lot longer, and that's what we're really looking for, in a rental property. And again, depending on what kind of strategy you go down to, you may not need furniture anyhow. If you're doing a standard buy to let, but if you're in a market that does need it, then it's certainly worth considering. You will generally only ever do it yourself once. And if you're going to do it yourself once, you probably need to allow about 40 to 60 hours to furnish a house. A kettle, good cordless screwdriver, a hammer, take a sleeping bag with you, and be prepared for a lot of misery, because
So it
it's
sounds
not a
like
pretty
you're
task.
talking from experience here.
Yeah, I've done it myself, and then I thought there must be a better way, so I created a small company that just did it for me. And it's, once you're starting using the same furniture over and over again, my chaps can put together, say, a bedside chest in 20 minutes, a wardrobe in 45 minutes. It's really, really quick. But if you don't know what you're doing, it's a nightmare. It really is. But yeah, I mean, one of the things that a lot of investors insist on doing, and I know that you relate to this because of what you do in terms of your outsourcing company, is they want to do everything themselves.
Yeah.
And it's just utterly crazy wanting to do that, because generally people are good at one or two things, maybe three things. And the rest of the stuff, yes, they can do it, but why do it when you can get someone else to do it for you? And why do it when they could probably do it better and quicker than you? And why do it when actually you hate doing it? And why not just do what you're good at? And you'll find a lot of investors do have that mindset, and that's up to them. But the people that have really understood what the game is will understand that time is money, and anything you can do to outsource those tasks for other people to do, it's worth doing, because you don't have to do it yourself. You could, as we mentioned, you could go and purchase a property and you could furnish it yourself for probably, if you're doing a 5 or 6 bed, I'd say £3,000 to £3,500, and that would be your own time and labour doing that. You could pay a package company to do it for 4, maybe 4.5. So it's maybe 500 to £1,000 more, but you don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
It's
but
just
you could be out in your job making 10,000. Like if you have your own business, you could go out and just work some more at what you're good at, and then use the profit to pay somebody to do something you're not good at.
Yeah, or you could be finding the next property. There's a whole bundle of stuff you could be doing.
Renegotiating your mortgage, saving you 15,000 a year.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, precisely.
So since I've been researching real estate, one of the things that I did was I called up some mates in Norway, in Oslo, that are real estate agents, and I said to them, I don't want to buy properties necessarily on the market. I'm looking to make a really good investment. This isn't an investment. It's not for me. All the stuff that we talked about. Can you please enlighten me on the smart strategies that people are using to make copious amounts of money in the real estate market in Oslo and the surrounding area? And they were like, they didn't really have anything to say. Is that the case? Is that like, are they like the banks? The banks will say, here's a mortgage, it's a great deal when it's not. Is this what happens? Like, if you go to a stockbroker and you say, how should I invest my money? He says, oh, you should give it to me, because then he'll make money. Is that the case in the industry? Are the people that we trust, do they always have their own agenda?
Well, where to start with that barrage of questions? Well, let's start with the first kind of surmise, that our agents like the bank. Essentially, yes, is the kind of overall answer. When anyone thinks about selling their property, what do they think? They think, I've got to get it. I've got to go and find some estate agent to sell it for me. whilst for sale by owner is growing more rapidly, especially with the internet and people like Google have tried Google property and stuff, which did fail miserably, but they were trying to get that whole do-it-yourself type of thing going. It's ingrained in people that you want to sell your property, you give it to an agent, and you'll have a set of agents trot round. They'll all give you why they're better than everyone else, and then they'll all try and then get you on price. We can sell it for 10,000 more than them, and blah blah blah. And most of the time, the people that they send out, the valuers, they're there for one reason only: it's to get a listing, and they get bonus and commissioned on it. So they're going to tell you whatever they want to tell you to make it happen. Now, when you're then talking to people in the office who are what you call the negotiators, again, it's the same with any kind of business and any kind of, I guess, professional. You've got your good ones, you've got your mediocre ones, and then you've got your really bad ones. And most people are just mediocre. They're just there. It's a little job to them. Someone rings up the end of the phone. They want to view a property. They'll happily take them round. They'll tell them about how great it is. Then they'll follow up with them and try and get them to buy. The really good agents, the ones that we work with, they're ahead of the pack. They know what's going on. They know what's happening to house prices. They can tell you without looking at any notes, how many properties they sold last month and how many they're going to sell next month. They can tell you what's going on with the local market. They can tell you what the hot areas are. They can tell you the areas that are a bit, maybe avoid those. And they're the ones that will get you the deals that are not on the market because they're connected to the flow of deals. And it is something I talk about a lot with my business circle folk, the mentor program I run, and we get them into the flow of deals in month 2 onwards. And it's really difficult to get into the flow of deals when you know nothing about your area. And this is why one of the things that's really important to do is that whole preparation. And once you've done that, if you do it in the way that we kind of do it, you'll know 90% more than anybody else in your market, including the estate agents, including the council officials. You'll just know so much more because they're all very much like siloed into this is the bit that they know and this is the bit that that person knows, and they don't want to know it all. Whereas investors, we need to know everything. We need to know what's happening with the local council in terms of plans that they've got for redevelopment. We need to know what's going on with private developers in terms of what they're building, in terms of amenities or new apartment blocks or whatever it may be. We need to know what's going on with the house prices in terms of this area of town is maybe a couple of percent higher than that area of town. Why is that? What's going on? Is it sentiment or is actually the fact that it's just a better location? And all of those kinds of good things. So there are good agents out there for sure, but you may have to dig around to find them. And typically they're the ones out there that are not in the office that much because they're out there doing deals, because those agents are all commissioned on doing deals. And the really good ones you'll find are there for a long period of time. So some of the agents we work with, they've been in the business 10, 15 years. They're all driving around in Mercedes and BMWs and Jags, and not bottom of the range ones. We're talking about nice ones, and they all know their stuff, and they can tell you instantly what's going on. And also, you can have a real conversation with them. A lot of agents, you go into a property and it'll be a bit kind of down market, and they'll say, "Oh, 30,000 to refurbish this." I mean, they're plucking numbers out of thin air. Whereas with the real agent, you talk to them and say, "Well, realistically, it needs this, this, and this." I go, yeah, it does. And I say, you think about 10, 15, say, yeah, maybe 16 or 18. They've got more idea about what's going on. They've been doing it longer and they really understand the market. So, yeah, I'd say most agents you talk to haven't got a clue, really haven't. They're just order takers, unfortunately. It's good that you've gotten in with some of them because they may be able to put you on to the person that is actually doing the deals, understands the market, the big dog in their office. But yeah, a lot of agents are just, what can I say?
So figure out who's really the sort of has the investor hat, maybe like does his own investments or her own investments on the side, and really like understands your mindset, and then you can kind of go in and you can learn and understand. So in London we have this famous Crossrail, and I actually was looking at a property at Forest Gate last week. The thing is, I would have liked to know about the Crossrail before the Crossrail was announced, and then have gone and bought lots of properties. And then when it was announced, I would have probably rented them out for a while. And then once the Crossrail was operational and like Costa and Starbucks had moved in, I would then sell. And then I'd find like in my next area of rapid growth. How do you actually figure out like what areas are gonna?
A lot of that is really down to painful reading of local government and national government plans, and they release these things pretty much every single day, and it's having the time to do it. But what you'll find is a lot of these really big projects will be 5-10 years in the making. So there'll be murmurings about the fact they're going to do that, but actually, when do they actually do it? I mean, it's if you look at I can never remember the exact word of it, but I think it's HS4, the high-speed network from London up to Manchester. They've been talking about that for 20 years. It's been forever and a day. Crossrail is probably more like 10, 15 years. So it's really difficult to take advantage of some of those kind of opportunities. Sometimes you've got to really just jump into no man's land and take a chance. People that invested in, say, Stratford 10 years ago, there was nothing there. There was just nothing there. And, people were just looking at what, can you make decent returns right now and get that residual income coming in? And B, is there some opportunities to make capital appreciation? And if there is, then people just go with that, I think. It's really difficult to understand what's going to go next. All you can do is look at the trends, and the trends will help you. Definitely the trends are your friend, but they're not always going to deliver for you the ultimate picture of that crystal ball. Because if there was one, everyone would be on it, So you got to take a bit of a risk.
So you can look into, you can have like a feeling for this area, but in the end, it's about like, if you buy this property, does it make a profit? Does it make cash flow? And then like, if you strike it lucky, then great. But if you don't, you're still making money.
Yeah, you've got to look at it from the point of view of purchasing a property to make money right now. You cannot purchase a property thinking it's going to make money in 20 years' time, because you've got to subsidise that property for 20 years. Yeah. And it just ends up causing you money.
We're going to round off fairly soon. I've got 2 more questions for you. The first is in business. I can go out and I can make more money faster. That's my feeling. Is like property takes longer. You'll buy a property. Maybe your cash flow is like £400 or £300 a month. And in business, you can go out and you can get a new contract, which maybe pulls in like £10,000 for your month, or maybe it's 50. So real estate really seems like a long-term sort of slower kind of making money, whilst business can be like up and down. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'd say for your standard vanilla type investment, it's a long-term game. It's building of assets. You can get to 6 figures within 12 to 18 months if you're really aggressive and you're really focused, and that's going to give you a nice income. And it's really what we aim with my clients, is getting in the 2% club through property. Once you've done that, then you just expand your portfolio. But you're right in the sense that business is a completely different flow, and it's a different level of money that's coming through and can be accessed. Property is a lot more slower. It's a slower route to riches, but it is a guaranteed route to riches if you buy the right properties at the right price in the right location. And sometimes you may get one of those wrong, but if you only get one of those wrong, you're still going to make some money. If you get all of them wrong, then you're pretty screwed. But try and avoid that through doing your research and preparation to begin with. The only way which you can really generate sizable returns is if you go into some of the more advanced strategies. And we're talking things such as development, fractionals, those types of things, even maybe serviced accommodation. But you've got to have a really steady grip of what's going on and have some experience behind you, even if it's on a smaller level, before you get into that.
But then you're also moving more into like business. I think like the more advanced strategies, you're more operating more like a business, business than you are like real estate, sort of passive income.
Yeah.
So what about crowdfunding? Crowdfunding is something, so we've had crowdfunding, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, crowd this, crowd that, peer-to-peer lending, and one of the things that's happening is crowdfunding for real estate investment. So a company will go out and find a investment, and they'll say, okay, this house is X amount of money. Minimum investment is £1,000 per person. We're going to rent it out for 5 years, and then we're going to sell it, or we're going to do like a vote on what we're going to do with the property. So what are your thoughts on crowdfunding for real estate?
It's for poor people.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, it's crowdfunding is for people with no money. In my opinion, it's like putting your money into, say, some kind of government bond that may give you a return of 1 or 2 or 3% per year if you're lucky. And it's a way of people thinking that they're investors when in reality they're not. They're just putting money into something that's swallowing up their money. And I know people, and I'm working with people that have invested into some of these as an experiment to see what happens. And yeah, you can invest from £50. I mean, there are schemes that will invest from £50 and you'll make 20 pence, 30 pence a month on your £50. But is it really an investment? I would say it isn't really. It's a way of taking some funds and locking them up with something that, like stocks and shares, you don't have a huge amount of control over. The only difference with stocks and shares is that you can, on the long run, ride it out. And if you get the right stocks and shares with dividend payments, then you make interesting returns if you know what you're doing. But crowdfunding is one of those things which it definitely is the rage right now, and every person's talking about it, and everyone's trying to get into it. But in reality, there's 2 issues, isn't there? There's the issue of fluidity, and there's also the issue of returns. And from a fluidity point of view, you invest into these units. How do you get your money back out? As you said, there could be a vote on do you sell or do you not. And if you want to sell and other people don't, you're just stuck. And then there's the return. Is the return worth putting in that money, or could you use that £1,000 to make even more money?
You can sell to other people if you're a member of the thing, you can sell your thing to somebody else.
Sure. There's internal, as you said, exchange going on with other members, and there's also a mini market going on. But I guess one of the things I've been working on over the last 6 months is a property bond that's going to be launching soon. And the reason we decided to go down that route rather than crowdfunding is the fact that in reality, crowdfunding is one of those things that people are really into and interested in, but does it actually make any money for the investors? I would say it makes very little, because with that amount of administration involved in actually maintaining a product of 100 or 150,000. I mean, I've seen some of these £150,000 units have 57, 59 investors in. To get a £150,000 house, I mean, come on. I mean, really? It's a small game that people are playing if they're going in and crowd investing. In my opinion, it could be right for some people. I would suggest there are other things that you could look into that would make you the same amount of money, if not more.
So this bond that you're creating, how does that even work? How can I invest in that? Why is that appealing to people?
Well, it's not launched yet. It will be launching shortly. All I can kind of say to you is that we're developing a bond which will be FCA regulated, so it will be regulated and controlled by the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, and the way that will be running is that investors will invest their money and they will receive a target return of 8% per year, which is substantially higher than anything else out there right now. And the reason it's high is because it's a blended mix of both HMOs and high-yielding single-let stock. If you would just go down the single-let stock route, you'll be very hard pushed to get more than maybe 4 to 4.5% return on your money, because the returns are just not there. So it's basically it's a way of people being able to invest cash and receive a decent return, and it's all secured by bricks and mortar. So it's all secured on the properties.
Cool. So Matt, if we wanted, let's say you've been watching this video and we want to train with you, what is the best place to reach out? I mean, get the cracking the property code here on Amazon. Not here on Amazon, but on Amazon. We'll add a link to the book in the article here as well. So where can we get more info about you and what you do in your trainings?
Sure. So if people want to reach out, the best website at the moment is probably yourhmoexpert.com. So that's yourhmoexpert.com. There's a whole bundle of free articles, videos, audios, and some free info on getting started in property in there. And yeah, just get in contact. Be more than happy to help.
Fantastic. So guys, property. I've been taking so many mental notes, and this has been incredibly valuable. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit like underneath, or jump on iTunes, write a quick review. It really helps us reach a larger audience. And we've got lots of more episodes here with famous entrepreneurs, best-selling authors, and other crazy people. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Matthew, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks a lot. Cheers, Erlend. Bye.
Okay.
This podcast is brought to you by MrOutsource.com. Outsourcing to the Philippines done for you. Mr. Outsource is a recruitment company matching busy entrepreneurs with Filipino virtual assistants, so you can have the time to focus on what's important.